30 minutes before we were supposed to get our marriage license, I stood on the steps of City Hall and watched a little boy barrel straight into my fiancé's arms. He hugged him like he'd done it 1,000 times. And the word he yelled was just as familiar. Daddy. I froze, the folder with our papers still clutched in my hand, my mind a complete blank. Chris, holding the boy, went pale. His first instinct wasn't to push the child away, nor was it to turn and explain things to me. It was to look at me. As if he was trying to calculate just how much I had heard. The kid already had his arms wrapped around Chris's neck, his little voice trembling with worry. Daddy, why weren't you answering your phone? Grandma fell, and she's bleeding a lot. I stared at the boy's small face for a few seconds. The eyes, the nose, the mouth. He was a miniature Chris, like he'd been stamped from the very same mold. Suddenly, I felt like a complete joke. A week ago, I was at my final wedding dress fitting. 3 days ago, I was wondering if we should get new curtains after we made it official. 10 minutes ago, my mom texted me, send a picture as soon as you get the license. I want to post it in the family chat. And now, here I was, on the steps of City Hall, watching the man I'd spent the last 3 years with holding his 7-year-old son. I took 2 steps forward, my voice steadier than I expected. Your son? Chris's Adam's apple bobbed as he held the child. Jenny, please don't overreact. A laugh escaped me. A bitter one. It's always the first thing men say when they get caught doing something shady. Don't overreact. As if my calmness would somehow sanitize the whole dirty situation. I'm asking you a question. Is this your son? The little boy in his arms, sensing the tension, gripped Chris's shirt and whispered, Daddy, who is this lady? Chris's face turned an even uglier shade. Suddenly, I didn't want to hear the answer anymore. But I had to. I needed to hear it from his own mouth. Because some knives, you have to pull out yourself, just to see how deep they went. Yes, he finally choked out, his voice hoarse. His name is Leo. He's 7. 7. Chris and I had been together for 3 years. Which meant this child existed long before I ever came into the picture. But in all those years, he'd never mentioned him. Not once. I nodded, a strange sense of calm washing over me. Anything else? Might as well get it all out now. Chris looked at me, and for the first time, I saw a flicker of genuine panic in his eyes. This isn't the place to talk about this. I think it's perfect, actually. I glanced at the people coming and going from City Hall. You were planning on marrying me today, right? So this seems like the perfect time to get everything straight. He was silent for a few seconds, as if steeling himself. I'd been married before. When he said it, I wasn't surprised at all. He had a son, it would be weirder if he hadn't been married, but not being surprised and hearing the words out loud are 2 very different things. My heart still felt like it had been squeezed by an icy fist. When did you get divorced? 3 years ago. And the boy has been with you this whole time? With my mom. Then why didn't you tell me? He looked at me, the ugly truth finally spilling out. I was scared you'd leave me if you knew. A breeze rustled the American flag hanging by the entrance. I just stood there, speechless. So it wasn't that he never had the chance. It wasn't that he forgot. It wasn't that he didn't know how to bring it up. He decided from the very beginning not to tell me. Because he knew that if he did, I would most likely walk away. So he figured he'd just lie and lock me down first. Brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. The little boy squirmed in his arms, as if he knew he'd caused trouble. But he was only 7, not yet an expert at reading adults. He just mumbled, Daddy, Grandma said you have to come home today. I looked at the child, and it all clicked. This accident was no accident at all. I looked up at Chris. Did your mom know we were getting our license today? His eyes darted away for a second. And right there, I knew. His mother had sent the boy here on purpose. Or rather, she finally couldn't take it anymore. Couldn't stand by and watch her son hide his past marriage and his own child to marry some woman who was completely in the dark. I almost wanted to laugh. The worst person in this family was obviously Chris. But the one who blew the whistle on him was one of his own. Jenny, he stepped toward me, his voice low. Let's not make a scene. The kid is here. We can go somewhere and talk this out properly. A scene? I stared at him. You lied to me for 3 years, and you're telling me I'm making a scene? His brow furrowed. I didn't intentionally lie. I never found the right time. Well, I guess the steps of City Hall is a pretty memorable time. He was cornered, with nothing left to say. I glanced down at the folder in my hands and felt a wave of absurdity wash over me. I had double-checked everything in it last night, terrified I might forget something. It never occurred to me that the one thing missing wasn't a document. It was the most fundamental layer of the man standing in front of me. I shoved the folder back into my purse and turned to leave. Chris, still holding Leo, rushed after me. Jenny. I didn't stop. Let me explain. There's no need. Jenny, I know I was wrong, but we've come so far. We can't let this one thing. I stopped dead in my tracks and spun around to face him. Let what one thing? I stared at him, my voice dripping with ice. We can't let the fact that you tried to trap me in a marriage based on lies, hiding your first marriage and your own kid, stop us? Chris, where the hell do you get the nerve to say something like that? The color drained from his face. People were starting to stare now, but I couldn't bring myself to care. I wasn't the one who should be embarrassed. Don't make it sound so ugly, he said through gritted teeth. I just didn't get around to telling you, it wasn't malicious. Not malicious? I laughed again. Your son is 7 years old, and you tell me it wasn't malicious? The boy in his arms finally burst into tears. Daddy. Chris shot him a quick, comforting glance before looking back at me, his own frustration now clearly visible. Jenny, can you please not do this in front of my son? That was it. That one sentence extinguished the last ember of warmth I had for him. Even now, he was still trying to manage my reaction for the sake of the child's feelings. What about me? Who was managing my feelings? I took a step back, my voice turning cold. Don't you ever use your son as a shield again. With that, I yanked my car door open and got in. Chris stood there, holding his crying son, his face a mask of defeat. As the window rolled down, he made one last move toward the car. Jenny, just calm down. We'll talk tonight. I looked him straight in the eye and said, each word a shard of glass, let's not. The wedding's off. And so are we. Then I slammed my foot on the gas and drove away. By the time I parked the car by the river, it was almost noon. The weather was beautiful. Sunlight bounced off the water, so bright it hurt my eyes. I sat there, hands on the steering wheel, my mind numb for a long time. It wasn't that I wasn't sad. I was so sad it didn't feel real. Chris and I met through a mutual friend. He was 4 years older, an architect at a top firm. At first, I wasn't that interested. He seemed quiet, stable, and unflappable. But as we saw more of each other, I realized how incredibly thoughtful he was. He'd bring an umbrella on cloudy days, just in case. Knowing I had a sensitive stomach, he never ordered anything too spicy. The time I had a fever in the middle of the night, he drove across town to bring me medicine. When my mom broke her leg and was hospitalized, he stayed with her a whole night and even found us a great home care nurse. During that time, I genuinely thought I'd hit the jackpot. To meet a man in my 30s who was mature, reliable, and capable felt like a miracle. All my friends said I was so lucky. Thinking back now, I guess he was a jackpot. A counterfeit one, just in very, very convincing packaging. My phone rang. It was my mom. I stared at the screen for a second before answering. So, is it done? Her voice was bright with laughter. Are you two coming over for lunch? Your dad and I were about to go get some fish. Mom, I cut her off. We're not doing it. The line went silent. What do you mean? I leaned my head back against the seat, staring at the blindingly bright river through the windshield. Chris has a 7-year-old son, I said softly. My mom let out a sharp gasp on the other end. I heard the clatter of a glass falling. What? He's divorced. He has a kid. He hid it from me for 3 years. The silence on the other end of the line stretched on for so long I thought we'd been disconnected. Then I heard my mom's voice, tight with fury. Where are you right now? By the river. Don't you move. Your father and I are coming to get you. I managed a small, tired smile, but my eyes suddenly burned. At a moment like this, no words of comfort can really help. But knowing that someone is coming for you? That's enough. 30 minutes later, my parents' car pulled up. My mom got into my passenger seat, her eyes already red, her hands shaking. That son of a bitch. My dad sat in the passenger seat, his face a storm cloud. After a long silence, he finally asked, so what's your plan now? I'm ending it, I said. You're sure? I'm sure. My mom, from the back seat, immediately chimed in. What is there to even be sure about? You think you should keep him around as a holiday decoration? Her voice cracked, and then the tears started. How could he hide something this huge for 3 years? The kid is 7. What does he think you are? I looked at her in the rearview mirror, caught between wanting to laugh and wanting to cry. Yeah, what did he think I was? Probably just another woman who, if he was charming enough in the beginning, could be manipulated into accepting a raw deal at the finish line. After all, so many people would have advised me to just swallow it. You've already come this far. He already has a kid, what are you going to do? It's not like he got divorced while he was with you. You're over 30. Are you really going to start over? Too bad for him, I'm not that woman. Or maybe, I might have hesitated in the past. But today, standing on the steps of City Hall, the moment I heard that little boy yell, Daddy, I knew. There was no point in even looking down the road ahead with him, because it was already rotten to the core. The first thing I did when I got home was delete Chris from my life. Phone number, social media, everything. Blocked. The second I finished, the doorbell rang. I walked to the door. I didn't even need to look through the peephole to know who it was. Sure enough, I opened it to find Chris standing there. He looked terrible, and he was alone. He clearly dropped Leo off. Jenny, we need to talk. There's nothing to talk about. I tried to close the door, but he shoved his hand in the frame, blocking it. At least give me a chance to explain. I looked at his hand, and a bitter laugh bubbled up inside me. I used to think his hands were handsome, long, clean fingers, steady when he was sketching blueprints. Now, they just look dirty. Explain what? I asked, my voice flat. Explain how you managed to lie to me for 3 solid years? I wasn't intentionally hiding it from you. Do you actually believe that when you say it out loud? He fell silent for a beat, then switched tactics. I knew that if I told you at the beginning, you would never have given me a chance. So you decided to just lie until I'd already agreed to marry you? I wasn't trying to lie, I was just. You were just betting that by the end, I'd be in too deep to leave. He said nothing. Because I was right, that was his entire game plan. Wait until I loved him. Wait until I'd met his parents. Wait until we were living together. Wait until I had mentally committed to our life, toured apartments, tried on dresses, and blended our families. By then, even if I found out about his past marriage and his secret son, the odds were I'd just cry, throw a fit, and then eventually, pushed by the sheer momentum of it all, I'd accept it. What a brilliant, cold calculation. Jenny, his voice dropped, turning soft and pleading. Leo was an accident. I actually laughed out loud at that. Does your son know you refer to him that way? His face tightened. That's not what I meant. Then what did you mean? The child was an accident, the first marriage was just a minor detail not worth mentioning, you just never found the time to tell me, and now I'm the one making a scene and being unreasonable? Is that it? He was speechless, trapped by his own pathetic excuses. After a few seconds, a flicker of annoyance crossed his face, his tone hardening. This is the situation. Can you please try to think about something other than your own feelings for a minute? I stared at him, and I honestly wanted to applaud myself. For my past blindness. It was truly spectacular. Even at this stage, his focus was on, this is the situation. Not, I'm sorry. Not, I deceived you. But, this is the reality, so can you please be the bigger person? Chris, I said slowly, looking him right in the eye. Do you think that if you just say it calmly enough, it makes you not the one in the wrong? His eyes flinched. That's not my intention. Yes, it is. Jenny. I'm going to say this one last time, I cut him off. The wedding is off. Your son is your problem, your ex-wife is your problem, and your life is your problem. Stay out of mine. And with that, I slammed the door in his face. He knocked for a long, long time. I didn't open it. My mom stayed with me that night. She made me a big pot of chicken noodle soup, forced me to eat half a bowl, and then sat on the couch and verbally tore Chris to shreds for a solid hour. When she finally ran out of steam, she stopped, looked at me, and asked gently, "You're hurting a lot, aren't you?" I stared down at the leftover soup in my bowl. It took me a moment to answer. A little. She moved closer and stroked my hair. It's okay to hurt. There's no shame in it. But calling off this wedding was the right thing to do. The only thing to do. My nose started to burn, and my eyes welled up. Mom, was I really that stupid? Stupid. Her brow furrowed instantly. He's the one who lied. The fault is his, not yours. Everyone makes a bad call now and then. She sighed and patted my arm. We're just lucky you found out when you did. She was right. Thank God we found out when we did. If Leo hadn't shown up today, if his grandmother hadn't sent him, I'd probably be home right now, looking at a marriage license. A cold sweat prickled my skin at the thought. The next day, I took off work. Not to hide, but to clean up the mess. The deposit on the photographer, the wedding planner, the venue booking, the custom furniture for the new apartment, the mattress and refrigerator we'd ordered. I spent the day on the phone, canceling everything. I got back what I could and made a note of what I couldn't. By noon, I had a number. For this wedding, I was out $17, $500 of my own money. And that wasn't even counting the gifts I'd bought his parents or all the other miscellaneous expenses over the years. I wrote the number down in a notebook, and as I did, a strange calm settled over me. It turns out, once you start calculating the actual costs, it becomes a lot harder to get sentimental. That afternoon, Chris's mother called. When I saw her name on the screen, I almost laughed. Of course. Here she comes. I answered but didn't say anything. She started with a heavy, put-upon sigh, the kind a matriarch uses when dealing with a childish spat. Jenny, dear, I know you feel wronged by all this. I leaned back on the sofa, fighting the urge to laugh in her face. You don't say. She either missed or ignored my sarcasm and plowed ahead. But Chris couldn't help it. His ex-wife just up and left, dumped the boy on him. It's not easy for a single man raising a child. You two have such a deep connection, you can't let a little thing like this break you up, can you? I stared at the potted plant on my balcony, a sense of the absurd washing over me. A 7-year-old child, a secret history, a lie that spanned our entire relationship, in her mouth. It was just a little thing. Ma'am, I interrupted her. Your son hid a marriage and a child from me for 3 years, and you're telling me not to break up over a little thing? Her tone cooled. I know what he did wasn't right. But you're over 30, the wedding was all planned. Are you really going to throw it all away for this? When you start dating again, who knows if you'll ever find a man with his kind of potential? I smiled a little. There it was. That was the woman I expected. So what you're saying is, I should just suck it up? It's not about sucking it up, it's about being realistic. You've come this far, she said, pausing before adding the final touch. Besides, Leo is a very well-behaved boy. He won't be any trouble for you. That was it. I was done. I had no more energy for this charade. Then you can keep raising him, I said. She sputtered, her voice sharp with indignation. What kind of way is that to talk? I learned it from your son, I said coldly. Don't call me again. Your family's version of realistic isn't something I'm interested in. I hung up. Afterward, I stood on my balcony and let the wind hit my face for 10 minutes until the anger subsided. Sometimes that's just how it is. Before the bomb goes off, you think there's still affection, still room to negotiate, still a gray area. But once the ugly truth is out, every word that follows is just colder and more sobering than the last. By the third day, I had dealt with almost all the wedding logistics. Chris hadn't come back to my door, but he'd started texting me from different numbers. At first, it was explanations. I never meant to deceive you. I really want to build a life with you. Leo lives with my mom most of the time, he won't get in our way. Then, it turned to pleading. At least give me a chance to explain in person. Jenny, I know I was wrong. Please don't give me a death sentence. And finally, when I continued to ignore him, he got desperate and angry. Making a scene like this isn't going to do you any good either. We already put a down payment on the apartment. If you just walk away, who's going to eat that loss? Jenny, don't push me. I laughed out loud when I read that last one. After everything, he was actually threatening me. Some people really won't see the light until they're being lowered into their own grave. I was in the middle of screenshotting everything from my records when the doorbell rang again. This time, it wasn't Chris. It was a woman. She was wearing a simple gray sweater, her hair pulled back in a low ponytail. She wore no makeup, and while her eyes were large, her expression was etched with fatigue. Most importantly, she was holding the little boy's hand. Leo. When I opened the door, he saw me and immediately ducked behind the woman's legs. In that instant, I knew exactly who she was. Chris's ex-wife. The woman spoke first, her voice soft. Hi, my name is Claire. I stood in the doorway, not moving. Can I help you? She glanced down at her son, then back up at me, a complicated emotion in her eyes. Can I talk to you? Just for 10 minutes. I studied her for a moment before stepping aside to let them in. After she sat down, the first thing she did was gently push her son forward. Leo, did you scare this lady the other day? Say you're sorry. The little boy kept his head down, his voice barely a whisper. Sorry. I looked at him, and a strange feeling stirred in my chest. None of this was the kid's fault. The fault lay with the adults who used him as a pawn. What did you want to say? I asked Claire directly. She was quiet for a few seconds, as if gathering her courage. Then she looked at me. I'm not here to convince you to get back with Chris. I was taken aback. She looked me in the eye and said quietly, I'm here to tell you not to believe a word he says. I waited. She pulled a folded, worn document from her purse and placed it on the coffee table. It was a divorce decree. Leo was not an accident, she said. And I didn't just abandon him. We were married, and we got divorced. But we divorced because he was cheating on me and tried to saddle me with his business debt. My fingers froze on my lap. What debt? A startup loan. She gave a small, bitter smile. He said he just needed a little capital to get through a rough patch and wanted me to put my parents' house up as collateral. I refused. After that, he started giving me the silent treatment, and eventually, he just said he wanted a divorce. He offered me full custody of Leo and said he'd walk away with nothing. But as soon as we signed the papers, his mother started raising hell, insisting that Leo had to have the family name and stay with them, or it would be a disgrace. She looked down and stroked her son's hair. I had just started a new job, I wasn't making much, and raising a child alone would have been incredibly hard. So I compromised. I let Leo stay with his grandmother. I thought I'd get him back once I was more stable, but for the past few years, Chris has used him to control me, and to control his own family. You're not the first person he's done this to. A cold dread settled in my stomach. What do you mean? She looked up, her eyes full of weariness. Before you, there was another one. I stared at her, stunned. She was also about to get married to him. But she found out about Leo and left, Claire explained. That time, it didn't get as far as City Hall because she discovered it earlier. I thought after that, he might have learned his lesson. I guess not. She didn't need to say more. I understood everything. This wasn't a one-time mistake. It wasn't a case of bad timing. He was a predator with a pattern. I sat there, completely speechless. Claire looked at me and said softly, I'm not here today as his ex-wife. I'm here because I know exactly how disgusting it feels when you find out the truth. Don't be soft. Don't feel like you're being cruel. Just walk away and don't give him an inch. I looked at her and slowly nodded. Thank you. As she stood up to leave, Leo suddenly looked up at me. Ma'am, he said quietly, are you not coming to our house anymore? I looked at him, silent for a moment. No, I'm not. He seemed both relieved and a little disappointed. He pressed his lips together and didn't say another word. After they left, I sat on the couch in a daze for a long time. Some things seem unbelievable at first, and it's only later that the fear truly sets in. If that little boy hadn't run up to Chris that day, if Claire hadn't come to my door, if Chris's own family hadn't finally lost their nerve, I could have actually married him. I could have walked, completely blind, into a trap that was set for me from day one. In that moment, I wasn't just relieved. I felt physically ill. That night, I gathered everything into a single digital folder, the screenshots of Chris's texts, the copy of the divorce decree Claire had left, and a detailed spreadsheet of every single wedding-related expense. I named it simply, settlement. The next morning, I went to a law firm. The lawyer who met me was a woman in her 40s named Ms. Davis. She had short hair and a brisk, no-nonsense way of speaking. After reviewing my file, she looked up and asked me her first question. Are you looking for compensation, or do you want to ruin his reputation? I thought about it for a second. Both. She cracked a smile. Good. Then don't hold back. I told her the entire story. When I was finished, her conclusion was swift and direct. First, he's guilty of fraudulent misrepresentation regarding a major life event, and while you didn't sign the license, it fundamentally misled you into a contract. Second, you can demand full reimbursement for all wedding and apartment-related expenses. Third, if he continues to harass or threaten you, you can file a police report and get a restraining order. What if he denies everything? The evidence is on your side, Ms. Davis said, pushing the file back toward me. Especially with the ex-wife's testimony and the undeniable existence of the child. His chances of playing the victim are slim to none. I nodded. For the first time, a profound sense of stability settled in my chest. It wasn't because I wanted to win. It was because I no longer had to doubt myself, to wonder if I was overreacting, if I was being unforgiving, if I was the one taking things too far. I wasn't. He was the one who was rotten through and through. Leaving the law firm, I sent Chris one final text message. Be at my lawyer's office tomorrow at 3 p.m. Bring a check for the apartment deposit, all wedding expenses, and every other cost I covered. If you're short $1, we'll see you in court. I sent it, and then I blocked him again. The next day, he showed up. He looked even worse than before, with dark circles under his eyes like he hadn't slept in days. The first words out of his mouth were, unbelievably, Jenny, are you really going to do this? I just looked at him, feeling an immense wave of exhaustion. You lied to me all the way to the steps of City Hall, and you're asking me if I'm going to do this? His face went rigid. I already told you, the kid wouldn't have affected us. You can't even manage your own life, what makes you think you can manage mine? I shot back. He was quiet for a moment, then it was like a switch flipped. He dropped the act, his voice turning hard. Fine. Let me ask you this. If I had told you from the beginning that I had a son, would you have even gone out with me? No. My immediate, unwavering answer seemed to stun him. After a few seconds, a cold, mocking sneer spread across his face. So that's what this is about. You just can't handle it, can you? You think because I've been divorced and have a kid, I'm beneath you. I almost laughed. Even now, he was trying to flip it, to paint me as some prejudiced snob. I don't have a problem with you having a son, I said, looking him dead in the eye. I have a problem with you lying about it because you knew I wouldn't accept it. His lips moved, but no sound came out. Chris, a child isn't a flaw. Lying is. I pushed the spreadsheet across the table toward him. Stop trying to change the subject. Here's the bill. Pay it today. And then, never contact me again. He looked down at the final number, his face slowly darkening. You calculated everything? Even this? Why shouldn't I? We were together for 3 years, and you're hitting me with a bill? I stared at him, the absurdity of it all hitting me one last time. You lied to me for 3 years, and you have the audacity to talk to me about our relationship? The color drained from his face. I stood up, grabbed my bag, and walked out of the conference room without looking back. As I stepped out of the law office, the sky was a brilliant, cloudless blue. In the days that followed, I finished tying up all the loose ends with the vendors. I got back what I could and wrote off the rest as a loss. For the apartment, I had the real estate agent refund what was possible for the furniture and appliances I'd paid for, and arranged for Chris to buy out the non-refundable items at a depreciated price. The process was annoying, fragmented, and exhausting. But my heart felt light. Because I knew, with every phone call and every cancellation, I was walking out. Not falling deeper in. When my friends found out, they were furious on my behalf. Some called Chris a scumbag, others called his mother a monster, and all of them said how lucky I was to have found out in time. And that was always my only reply. Yeah, I'm just glad I found out when I did. What if it had been later? What if it had been after the wedding? What if it had been when his son suddenly moved in? What if it had been after I'd completely rearranged my life, my career, and my home around him, so deeply enmeshed that escape felt impossible? That would have been a true disaster. 2 months later, I took a solo trip to the coast. It wasn't to heal or find myself or any of that cliche stuff. I just suddenly felt like going. I woke up at 4 a.m. to catch a train, got to the town and had a bowl of seafood chowder, and then just walked along the beach. The sun was just rising, casting a brilliant gold sheen across the water. The wind was cool and tasted of salt. I stood there and thought about all the things that had once felt so important. The dress, the marriage license photo, the apartment, the smiling faces of our parents at dinner, Chris, holding me and promising that we would be a family. Thinking about it all now, I felt nothing. It turns out that once you see something, or someone, for what it truly is, it loses its value with astonishing speed. That afternoon, I took a picture of myself by the ocean and posted it online. No caption. Just the sea and the sky. 10 minutes later, my dad liked it. 2 minutes after that, a message from him popped up. Coming home for dinner? Your mom made soup. I looked at the message and smiled. I knew they had been worried about me, walking on eggshells, afraid to bring up anything that might hurt. And the more they did that, the more I was reminded that there is so much normal, healthy love in the world. Love that doesn't demand you fill a hole. Love that doesn't trick you into compromising. Love that doesn't ask you to be more understanding, more mature, more patient with being disrespected. Love that is simply, truly on your side. I texted back, on my way. On the train ride home, the green fields and towns blurred past the window. I leaned my head against the seat and felt utterly, completely light. Like I had finally walked out of a story that was never meant for me in the first place. I saw Chris one more time after that. It was at the mall. He was with Leo, no one else was with them. The boy saw me first and froze, his eyes darting up to his father. Chris saw me then, too. He stopped walking, his posture stiffening. We stood there for a moment, separated by about 20 feet of polished floor. Finally, I gave a small nod. Just a simple acknowledgement. It wasn't forgiveness. It wasn't closure. It was just that, by now, he had become truly insignificant to me. He looked like he wanted to say something, but seeing the calmness on my face, he just managed to quiet, Jenny. I hummed in response, but I didn't slow down. As I walked past, I heard Leo ask him in a small voice, Daddy, was that the lady? Chris didn't answer. And I didn't look back. Because I suddenly understood, the best revenge was never about watching him suffer and regret. It was knowing that I would never, ever stop for him again.